All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Again, for those who just arrived, please add your sections at the beginning of your names so I can easily locate your names in the grading sheet and for me to be able to properly grade you. And thank you so much for attending today's class. Anyway, if possible, I'd like you to turn on your cameras while we do the discussion. Yep. And let's start my screen sharing. Wait a while. So actually, uh, wait, just start for a while. Actually, I'm ready to discuss all these items that or all the topics that I gave you. But I was just expecting, I was, uh, I needed you guys to have an active participation in class and instead of making plates again, dahil we understand naman how tedious it is for you guys to have to do it again. Dahil marami na rin namang plates sa ibang subjects, so we decided to divide the class into 5, group of 8, group of 8 people each, para meron din tayong active class participation, and this is what we're doing. Unfortunately for us, actually not really unfortunately, but since the circumstances did not allow certain groups to proceed today, I will be the one discussing modern architecture to you today. So before we start, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Yes, no, maybe, definitely, yes. I see thumbs up na. All right, so our discussion points for today, this afternoon, we have the modern isms, the modern day architecture, which is around the 19th to 20th century. Actually, more on the 20th na. We have Expressionism, the still, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, the Bauhaus style, and the International style. Today, we will also be discussing about the famous architects in this era. So, before we start, I'd like to have a very short review of the very short discussion that we had last week. Anyone want to start? What did we discuss last week, and what do you remember? It's a very short discussion last week, but what do you remember? Oops, no. What do you remember, guys, from last week? Review from last week. Any topic or any takeaway from the discussion that we had last week? Pag walang sumagot, tatawag tayo sa mga naka-off cam. Someone raised his hand. Jomar, good afternoon. What do you remember from last week?
Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon,
Ma'am,
sir.
ma'am yung sa revivalist architecture. Sa revivalist architecture.
Architecture, correct. And why did we have a revivalist here? Okay, sige. Nawala na si Jomar. Anyway, why do you think, guys, we had, or what do you remember? Why did we have a revivalist era? Why did they feel, or why did those people felt like they needed to bring back yung architectural style from the past back into the modern, or actually not the modern world, but their present world? Sige, I can see the blank faces. Maybe you guys were tired? Congratulations dun sa nanalo sa parole making. Anyway, Tudi, what did you win during the WAD? May prize ba si Tudi sa WAD? Guys from 2D, meron ba kayong napanalunan sa WAD? Parang walang nagsasalita.
May nanalo po, ma'am.
Sino? At ano?
Sa quiz po, si ano po, pang second place po si Takumi, saka po si April. Saka po sa may cartooning po si Jomar Pansin.
Sige, turo mo silang lahat. So si Takumi, si Jomar, and si April. Tama?
Yes po, ma'am.
Sige. 2A, anong price nyo yesterday? Walang nag-Mr. and Miss sa inyo?
Wala pong ano.
Anyway, moving forward. So, we had the revivalist era. Thank you, Janella. We had the revivalist era basically because everything was being so uniform. Because everything was being, alam niyo yun, pare-parehas na lang. It's kind of getting boring for them. There was a need for them to personalize their space, di ba? They had a lot of reasons for them to go back. They had their own reasons. And then, last time, di ba, we asked, ano ba yung dapat na nanatili na lang sana? Ano ba yung pinakamagandang ni-revive nila? Or, because we talked about the Greco-Roman revival, we talked about the Gothic revival, we talked about Beaux Arts. And basically, marami namang revivalism eh. You have Egyptian revivalism. You have a lot of revivalism actually, but we talked about those that are common. And today, we will be talking about the common modernisms, which is what comes into your mind when we say modern architecture? What era, what timeline, what specific style, structure ang naaalala nyo or ang naiisip nyo when we say modern architecture? Yes, Takumi, Mr. Crispy, congratulations. What's your idea of modern architecture?
Wala pong ornaments.
Wala pong ornaments. Yes, oo, very sparse yung ornamentation. Hindi katulad noon na napakadaming moldings, 'di ba? We had our dictums. This era will this discussion, it's relatively longer than the other discussions that we have. Kasi dito na papasok yung mga kilala nating architects, dito papasok yung mga famous architectural dictums. You will hear today na you will hear about the less is more, less is a bore. You'll hear those things. You'll hear na form follows function or uh, function over form. You will discuss it today. Anyway, hindi naman sa wala siyang ornament, pero hindi siya kasing dami or hindi siya kasing super, alam mo yon, hindi siya yung pag nakita mo, if meron agad architectural style na papasok sa isip mo, like nakita ko yung building. Oh yeah, I know that it's Egyptian. Bakit? Kasi may papyrus. Oh, that one is Greco-Roman. Bakit? Kasi merong acanthus leaves yung column. It's a Corinthian column. 'Di ba? This time, we don't have those things. We don't have those things. What we have now is only the imagination of the architect kung paano niya gagawin yung isang building. Moving forward, we have very short discussions on each of the modernisms. So modernism started during the Industrial Revolution. Again, halos kasabayan nila revivalism, but a little bit later. So we had a lot of changes because of the Industrial Revolution. Bakit? Kasi we now have these new materials that we can use in construction. Hindi na lang siya yung mga dati nating ginagamit na, okay, concrete, okay, bato to make the arches. Dito natin sa gitna lalagay yung umpisa, gigilid natin. Hindi na natin kailangan gumawa ng corbelled arches kasi pwede na natin pormahan yung arc. Pwede na natin pormahan, pwede natin lagyan ng reinforcement na steel. Meron na ngang all-steel building, meron na ngang glass, and we know already that at this point in time, we were able to create stronger glasses. From the annealed type of glass, I think you'll know about these types of glasses in your BT class. So from the annealed type of glass, we were able to do the tempered glass, the security glasses, yung merong mga wire mesh sa loob, which is a little bit or at least 2 to 5 times stronger than your usual annealed glass na isang beses lang niluluto. We were able to use a lot of steel, as in a lot of variations of steel. You have cast iron, wrought iron, black iron, pig iron, every kinds of iron. You now have your eye sections, you now have your you now have more applications dahil hindi ka na limited sa building materials mo, and you can now build taller buildings. You can now build bigger buildings or bigger span na walang column kasi you now have the advancement in engineering and construction. So, this is the Crystal Palace in London. This is known for being the what? Anyone can guess? From the name itself, it's called Crystal Palace. Anyone? Known siya for being I think one of, if not the first, it's actually one of the first building during its time around 1930s, 1940s, 1920s or 1930s, not 1940s. Kasi I remember this was destroyed or brought down in 1936. So during that time, 1930s, 1920s or what, this is the first building made of cast iron and glass. It's located in Hyde Park in London. Very good actually. Hindi ko sure kung siya yung inspiration ng Crystal Arcade sa Manila, but someone wants to say something in the chat. Wait lang, I'll answer. All right. So this is the Crystal Palace for you. As I've mentioned, during this era, modern architecture started in the 1900s or a little late ng 1800s, pero definitely not now kasi we're in the contemporary postmodern era na. So this is why do we call it modern? Well, kasi hindi ka na nakasandal or hindi ka na rooted dun sa character, architectural character ng mga nauna. Remember, 'di ba, parang paulit-ulit lang eh. You had your Greek and Roman architecture way back HOA1. You had your Renaissance period, which is actually a revival of it or a rebirth of the Greco-Roman architecture. And you still have your revivalist architecture, which actually, again, may revision, may pag-revive ng elements from that era. And now we're starting into scratch. This is all new. This is your modern architecture. Moving forward, so Crystal Palace, remember that doesn't really show up in the board exam, but it pays to remember. This is your first iron and glass building in London. And moving on, we now have skyscrapers. If you look at the map, it's still the same map as the revisionist or the revivalist movement. Somewhere in North America and somewhere in, this should be higher. Wait, let me get my pointer. I think I made a mistake here. This should be higher, a little bit here. Dito dapat siya. Kasi this is your, ano na eh. Banda dito dapat yan. Or anyway, it's fine. North America and Europe. So moving on, you now have skyscrapers. Bakit kaya? Bakit kaya may skyscrapers na? Ang problem kasi, why we cannot build tall buildings before was hindi ganun ka-efficient yung supply system natin ng tubig. Electrical lighting, electric system, hindi naman siya super problem eh, kasi pagagapangin mo lang yung wire. The thing is, what improved is yung capacity natin to handle electricity. Yung plumbing now, well, we had the motors, we had the pumps, napapaakyat na natin yung tubig sa mas matataas na lugar. And of course, you have your vertical building transportation system, which is your elevator and escalator, di ba? So, people are now going up those stories, those floors with comfort and ease kasi they don't have to walk the stairs anymore. Whereas before, lahat mid-rise. Kasi napapagod na yung tao, hindi na aabot ng 7th floor. What is your walkable and acceptable floor na hindi mo kailangan gumamit ng elevator? Anyone? Any guess? Kung anong floor ka
Side floor.
dapat? Ilan, Jomar?
Ma'am, hanggang side floor.
Hanggang 10? 10?
Side po, side.
5. Sorry, nagulat ako sa 10. Actually, by 5th floor, kailangan mo ng elevator. That's per code. So hanggang 4th, pwede mo pa daw lakarin. Sabi ng building code. Ewan ko kung sino nagsabi nun, pero kami second lang. Charot. Anyway, yun yung reality per code na parang 5 floors kailangan mo ng elevator. So this is your home insurance building in Chicago, Illinois. What can you say? What can you say about it now? Anything that you can say about how it looks like? May arches pa rin, meron pa ring element ng revivalist, 'di ba? But anyway, what made it count sa modern day architecture natin is this one. What are these? Sige. The architect of this building is William Jenny, or William Lay Baron Jenny. This was actually originally 10 stories high and completed in 1885. So late 1800s na siya. So why is it included here? Why is it counted in our discussion? Because it's one of the world's first skyscraper. Hindi man siya yung first, it's one of the first. Pero I think this is the first one recorded na you now have the first skyscraper. It was demolished in around 1930s, 1931, 1932, just around the same time na dinemolish din si Crystal Palace. So there, you have the Wainwright Building in St. Louis. Typically, andito pa tayo sa early days ng modern era. Sa early days ka pa, so hindi pa siya kasing tingin natin kasi baka pag iniisip natin, modern tulad ng sabi natin kanina, wala siyang ornament. Not exactly. Well, during the later part, siguro wala na kasi nandun na tayo nagpo-focus sa medyo international style, which is really just glass facade and steel. So, the Wainwright Building, I think the most famous of the architects ng Wainwright Building is marami siyang architect actually, maraming dumaan sa kanya, but you have Louis Sullivan and Frank Lloyd Wright. Yeah, it was first designed by Alder and Sullivan in 1891. So it's actually one of those buildings that stood na more than 10 stories at that time. This was around 1890s. So one of the earliest then, but the other one was of course definitely earlier than it. Louis Sullivan, the designer of Wainwright Building, or one of the original designer of the Wainwright Building. His most famous dictum was form ever follows function. What do we mean by form follows function? This is something that your TOA professor or instructor would teach you, but we'll discuss very briefly. So when we say form follows function, we literally mean na uunahin natin yung purpose ng building before we think of a form. Kasi ang nangyayari ganito. When I was in college, I had this classmate. Iisip muna siya ng facade. Iisip muna siya ng design. Tapos I asked him, bakit? Sabi niya, ayoko kay Sullivan eh. Gusto ko maganda yung building ko and then doon ko na lang i-fit yung spaces ko. Well, it's up to you as long as your end users, kasi we have another school of thought on this one eh. As long as your end users will be able to use your structure or your design with ease. Ang goal mo lang bilang arkitekto is padaliin yung buhay ng mga end users mo. And I don't mean pabilisin yung buhay. I mean padaliin yung day-to-day lives, di ba? Padaliin natin yung day-to-day lives nila. Yung komportable sila, maganda, very eye-pleasing, di ba? But at the same time, walang obstruction, walang interference sa kung paano sila namumuhay. So, his greatest contribution to the skyscrapers was the organizing of its identical stacked floors to express a strong visual identity. Used organic decorations to humanize his imposing structures. Let's go back. Pare-parehas yung bintana niya from the third floor up until the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So this is third to ninth floor. No, sorry. This is third, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Third to ninth floor. This is the 10th floor. I don't think it had a 10th floor. So your third to ninth floor is similar in design or similar in design sa labas. Kung paano siya hinati sa loob, that's something that we have to Google a little bit later. Anyway, I did not include it here. So, he wanted to do it in a way na hindi ma-obstruct yung design niya sa labas. So, it looks uniform from the outside. You still have your element of order. You still have your element from your revivalist, from your Renaissance era of order. And now, looking at it, he used a lot of organic decorations. And where do we see these organic decorations? Diba? Usually Art Nouveau. But here, he was able to make it make it incorporated in a way na hindi siya super nakakaapekto sa itsura kasi he kept the same color all throughout, or not really the same color, the same profile. That's sand-colored profile or sand-colored na facade. And he made his windows alike, similar in height, in width. So parang andun tayo sa repetition and order element. Gumagawa siya ng statement sa facade na it will look striking. Oo, kasi ang laki tas pare-parehas eh, 'di ba? At this point in time, it's one of the earliest na skyscraper na nga sa kanila to. So, that's one. Here you go. Prudential Building in Buffalo in New York. What can you say about the Prudential Building, guys? Anyone? Sige, let's call on someone. This is still by the same architects, Alder and Sullivan. This is the Guarantee Building or the Prudential Building. Sige, let's try. Dun sa mga naka-off cam. Sige. John Amor Rupert. Ang haba naman. John Amor. John, what can you say about the building? John? At mukhang wala si John. See, exactly what I want you guys to turn on your cameras. Sige, let's try someone else. John April? Can you say something about, no right or wrong answer, just say something about what you see and what you feel for this or for this specific structure? April?
Yes, ma'am. Ano po, very plain and clean po yung lines. Clean lines po.
Plain and clean lines is what we're waiting for. Well, how can you compare it to this one? How do you compare it to this one?
Ito pong Wainwright building po, ano po, sparse po yung ornamentation na compared po sa kanina pong building na pinakita.
This one, the Prudential Building. Actually, yeah, but they're actually not really the same. Pero in color, in stance, you see the first two floors, the podium floors, hindi siya uniform with the rest. And look how he added something to break the top. So you have your base, you have your shaft, and you have your pinnacle, or you have your peak. Same with this one. This is the base, the two-floor podium. Hindi siya kapareho nitong shaft mo. At hindi rin sila parehas nito. This your cap, your peak, your pinnacle is what terminates your building sa taas. Okay. You see how they wanted to make it look like it's a strong base? Mas mataas yung floor to ceiling niya than the uniform here. Kasi they wanted it to look stable. They wanted it to look powerful. And, paano ba? Yeah, stable I think is the right term for it. Look at the details. You don't see this as street level. I don't think you would appreciate this as street level, but look at the details they incorporated. Moving forward, the Sullivan Center in Chicago, Illinois. Where was the Wainwright building? Also in Chicago, Illinois. This is now your Sullivan Center in Chicago. Still the same architect, Louis Sullivan, and surprisingly, Daniel Burnham has had his hand here. So, just focus. This is your early modern era, early modern architecture, somewhere between the late 1800s to the early 1900s. So, hindi pa sila totally super far off from what was built before, pero they're making it higher now. They're adding elements ng modern era. Look at the windows. Big windows. Look at the curvature here. Did you see this in any of the structures we did aside from Byzantine? No. Diba? They still use organics ornamentation or decoration, but it's now more clean lines. Clean lines, actually, the streamlining is more Art Deco. But this one is your early modern time or early modern era architecture. Modernisms and other architectural style. Now we move on to any question about your modern architecture. About Louis Sullivan, Frank Lloyd Wright, Daniel Burnham, and all the people that we mentioned? None so far. We move on to Expressionism. This is a European movement that generated rough and dynamic forms. We put emphasis on dynamic, symbolic, stylic expressions of inner experience, concept of more importance, sorry for the typo, than practicality. Architecture as a work of art. Now, Einstein, not Einstein. I'm sorry, inaantok na ako. Einstein Tower. This is one of your famous expressionist building. This is located in Potsdam, Germany. What can you say about the Einstein Tower? This is designed by Eric Mendelsohn. I did not include the names of the architect, but please expect na lalabas sila sa exam, so pay close attention. Eric Mendelsohn, this is the Einstein Tower. What can you say about the Einstein Tower? Is it an observatory? Bakit meron akong nakikitang telescope? Ba't mukha siyang sapatos? Ang weird naman ang itsura niya. Ba't ganun yung bintana? Ni wala akong makitang straight line. Hindi naman siya perfectly curved, pero soft edges. Bakit? Kasi remember, expressionism is more, it relates to architecture more as a work of art rather than a practical approach to designing your buildings and your structures. Do you understand? Do you guys understand? Do you guys follow? This is an astrophysical observatory in the Albert Einstein Park in Potsdam, Germany. Any questions so far? Questions, comments, suggestions? Moving on, the Sydney Opera House. Do you know the story about the Sydney Opera House? About Jorn Utzon, the architect. It's not spelled as Jorn, it's spelled as Jorn Utzon. It's pronounced as Jorn Utzon. Do you know that this was between Utzon and Peter Hall? This is a competition before, and it's not actually Utzon who won. So, anong inspiration kaya niya sa design niya?
Ma'am, ano po? Ma'am,
Sige nga, Janela.
yung ano po siya, yung balat po siya ng orange. Tama po ba? Yung pinil.
Balat ng orange na pinil. Sabi nino. I mean, yun yung nakikita mo. Pero saan mo nakuha yan?
Sa ano po, yung sa Google. Tama po ba? Yung ano po siya eh. Wait lang po. Na-check ko po ulit. Kasi naano na po namin siya last time ng first year po. Wait lang po.
Hindi siya peel ng orange. Isa siyang orange na inati-hati. Hindi yung balat.
Ay! Balat. Ay, opo pala.
'Di ba? Sabi nila
Opo.
seashell daw yan. Utzon famously found inspiration in monumental Aztec and Mayan architecture. The concrete podium of the Opera House was based on temples he had seen in Mexico, and he later described his travels to Central America as one of the greatest architectural experiences in his life. So he was influenced by the Mayan and the Aztec, but not specifically for this one, because this is inspired by nature and its forms, very natural, very organic, to the point na they used an orange, a cut or hindi peeled hindi yung balat hindi yung peels, hindi yung hindi yung balat ng orange, pero the whole orange itself. Some people actually before they argue na Sydney Opera House looks like seashells, but it's not. It's from organic parts, not organic matter. So there you go. Jorn Utzon, Sydney Opera House. Remember Jorn Utzon and Peter Hall. And yes, hindi siya yung nanalo sa design competition. This still, or most commonly known as, well, it's directly translates to the style. It's the use of black and white with the primary colors, rectangular forms, and a symmetry. Redveld Schroederhaus in Netherlands, Utrecht, Netherlands. So, what can you say about this building? What can you say about this building in relationship to dun sa, it's classified as distill, which is actually the style. This was designed by Gerrit Rietveld in 1924, an icon of modern architecture. Gerrit Rietveld was a member of the Distill, hindi ko ma-pronounce, pero feeling ko tama yung pronunciation ko, Distill art movement, and the building is seen as architectural masterpiece of this movement. But I don't agree. I don't agree. Its facade avoids any kind of symmetry or established order, so it wants to make chaos, I think. Play this role of pure forms and basic colors. The balconies became planes that glide past the primary colors, creating a collage. So again, I think this is one branch of expressionism. I would relate this as one branch of expressionism kasi it focuses more on architecture as again a work of art, not exactly the most practical way to design a building, but they had to make a statement. At this point in time, they pretty much had all the time, all the money in their hands for them to be able to, let's make a statement using buildings. So, Garrett Ritfield for you, for Schroeder House in Netherlands. Any questions? Ginawa namin to for scaled model when I was in second year. This one, and I think we also did Villa Savoy. And that's actually still one of the most logical architectural approach for me, but quite literal if you'd ask me. So let's move on if you don't have any questions. Art Deco. Now we're moving forward. Art Deco or Style Modern. It's based on geometric motifs, streamlined and curvilinear forms, sharply defined outlines, uses bold color and synthetic materials. Let's see. Chrysler Building. Actually, ito lang yung Art Deco element ng Chrysler Building. Yung tuk-tuk niya, sorry. So if it's more geometric, if it's more streamlined, malinis yung line, more defined yung outlines niya, you could easily say it's Art Deco. Examples of Art Deco are Pablo, what's the name of that architect who designed the FEU building? One of the FEU buildings here in Manila was by Pablo Antonio. Pablo Antonio. And yeah, it's Pablo Antonio, the main building of FEU. This is actually one of the Art Deco buildings in Manila. Also, I think the Metropolitan Theater counts as Art Deco. It's clean, streamlined, and it uses geometric forms. Yes, Rodney, you want to say something, sir? Wala naman. Baka na-unmute lang siya. So, yeah, there you have it. Art Deco uses more geometric figures. See the triangles here. See the square motifs here, the rectangular motifs. It's kind of playful, but at the same time, it's more formal. It's more serious in design than Art Nouveau. So this is an example of your Art Deco style. Don't mind the murals of plants. Streamlined, clean lines, geometric forms, very classic Art Deco. So now, we move on to Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau, or literally means new art, it's based on the return to craftsmanship and the integration of art, design, and architecture. It's characterized by fluid, undulating motifs, often derived, not deprived, sorry, ang daming typo, derived from natural forms. Here are some of the names wherein Art Nouveau is known. In Germany, it's Jugendstil. It's Modernismo in style. It's Style Liberty in Italy. It's in Austria, they call it Sécession, or Le Style Metro in France. So, this is a good example of Art Nouveau. Why? It's more fluid. Again, it's more fluid. It has lines na, well, it's more natural looking. So yung mga natural motif, pag nakakita kayo ng maraming flower, maraming dahon, maraming kung ano-anong, alam mo yun, not usually found in your building, you could safely say it's Art Nouveau. See the details in the railing, the balustrade, the staircase, even how they made this into a circular. This is Hotel Tassel in Belgium, guys, by the way. Yung interiors nito, you would see kung gaano ka-intricate yung mga moldings, kung gaano ka-intricate yung mga ornamentations. Modern architecture, yes, this is modern architecture in the sense that it happened in the late 1800s or early 1900s. Or actually, this is now more early 1900s. So this is Art Nouveau for you. Etong exterior ng Hotel Tassel is not really more Art Nouveau kasi it's really plain looking. But once you go inside, you'll appreciate the Art Nouveau movement. So Art Nouveau and Art Deco, before we move on to my favorite architect, Art Nouveau and Art Deco, they differ kasi mas stiff si Art Deco. It's not super sharp, but it's clearly defined outlines, streamlined forms, as in you would see na it's a line leading you to something. It's more geometric, more regularly looking. Si Art Nouveau kasi parang akong nagsabog ng dahon and I use it as a design inspiration. It's more natural looking. It's more inclined to nature, fluid designs. And as we said, it has the sense yung return to craftsmanship. What do we mean by this? Kasi they probably were thinking, same with the revivalists, na all of the designs that they're seeing in their built environment, it's more of ang usual na niya. It looks one of the same. It looks one and alike, di ba? And they wanted Art Nouveau to scream, hey, I'm different. Hey, I'm unique. So they were able to successfully do that in the process. No, wait lang. Can you guys hear me? Pa-thumbs up naman if you can hear me kasi my earphones got disconnected. Let's ask. Crystal, can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me? Yes, Jessica. So sorry, may naputol ba sa sinasabi ko kasi na-disconnect yung earphones ko? Guys, I'm assuming you can hear me kasi no one is reacting negatively. Crystal, yes. Fatima, yes. Just nod your head if you can hear me kasi I can see you on cam. Can you hear me? Clearly? Yes? Yes, okay. So they can hear me nag-thumbs up sila. Anyway, moving forward. So I'd like you guys on your own time and on your own pace to Google, spend 5 minutes on Google, images of buildings in the Philippines that are inspired by the Art Deco movement and the Art Nouveau movement. And then we can discuss it separately on the group chat so we can have a more in-depth knowledge of how much these two architectural movement has inspired Philippine architects o yung mga pensionado noon. Kasi, of all the things that we discussed today, these are the two architectural movements na most commonly used in the Philippines. So moving on, I added a slide for the modern architect. Modern, by modern we say early 1900s. So, Anthony Gaudi, if you've heard of the story of Anthony Gaudi, he designed a building. At sa sobrang pagka-in love niya sa building na, he was walking backwards No joke. This is Anthony Gaudi for you. So, Anthony Gaudi combined Moorish and Gothic elements with its naturalistic forms, integrates craft with architecture such as stained glass ceramics, wrought iron forging, and carpentry. This is sparked well, by the way, in Barcelona, Spain. The whole compound was designed by Gaudi, rather playful than the Sagrada Familia that he also designed. So I think this is Sagrada Familia. Is it not? Yeah. Sparked well in Spain. This is Gaudi for you. He used naturalistic forms, playful play of colors, pero we go here, Moorish and Gothic elements. We go to Sagrada Familia. This is actually one of the buildings that Gaudi designed. So he combined Gothic. You see how the pointed, you see how pointy this thing is? Very pointy. It's very tall. Remember in Gothic, we said it's progressive heightening and lightening of the building. Ang taas niya, and it's not yet done. You have a central tower at the middle na sobrang taas than all those 4 towers at the front, and you still have towers at the back. It's still not done yet. Years after that, decades, almost a century after Gaudi's death, hindi pa rin tapos yung Sagrada Familia. Diba? I think I posted on Facebook kung gaano ka-detailed yung Sagrada Familia. Just look at how detailed it is. Gaudi really meant it, that God is in the details. Yung details niya, if you zoom in a little closer, if you ever take hold of a photo, good afternoon po ma'am, pasensya na po, may naririnig po kami pero malabo po ata sa akin. Malabo daw kay Shauna yung audio ko. Sa inyo ba malabo din? Malabo ba?
Medyo po, ma'am.
Ha?
Medyo po, ma'am. Yung dating po is malabo po. Hindi po siya.
Wait a while, I will just fix my mic. My mic. Okay.
Now. Is this better now? Is this better
Yes
now?
po, ma'am.
Yes
This
po.
is better now, sorry. Kasi I turned on my speaker for me to be able to hear you. Kasi na-disconnect na yung headset. Dahil lobat na pala siya, sorry. Yan, don't use wireless. Kung ayaw niyong laging nalolobat, nakakapikon pala siya pag nalolobat. Anyway, saan yung pinakamalabo na narinig niyo? Balikan natin si Gaudi. Yes, okay. So, going back, Anthony Gaudi. He combined Moorish and Gothic elements with naturalistic forms. He integrated crafts with architecture such as stained glass, ceramics, wrought iron forging, and carpentry. This is one of the designs which is rather playful. The whole compound of Parkwell in Barcelona, Spain, was designed by Gaudi. Napaka-weird nung designs niya. In all fairness to him, ang weird nung designs niya nitong mga times na to. Kasi parang ang nasa fantasy world, parang ang nasa enchanted kingdom. But he just wanted to use the natural forms of things. He just wanted it to flow one with nature. Remember when I said design with nature? Gaudi really took it to the next level. That sparked well for you. If Professor nyo si Viela, she's been here. I haven't been here. But Gaudi is really my favorite architect. So going back to Sagrada Familia. Remember when we said this Gaudi person, Gaudi, he combined Moorish and Gothic elements. And remember when we were studying Gothic architecture, we were saying na it's pointed. Do you see how pointed this thing is? Sobrang pointed niya. Ang dami niyang pointy. Marami siyang pointed pinnacles. And on top of that, we also mentioned in Gothic architecture that it's progressive heightening and lightening. At this point in time, mataas na yung 4 na yan. But, even years after Gaudi's death, hindi pa rin ito tapos. Meron pa yung central post. Hindi pala siya poste. Central tower, which is actually taller than all these things. All these existing towers. And if you actually take time to Google a photo, or if you have a resource to search kung gaano ka-detailed to, mukha itong mga bahay, Ana, sobrang yung niya sa labas is very organic, very natural, organic yung kanyang mga carving sa labas. Kaya siya mukhang ganyan from the outside kasi may texture yung walls niya. And these are organic carvings na inisa-isa talaga. Grabe. So, he really meant it. He really meant the God is in the details. So, that's Sagrada Familia for you. Dito sa gitna niyan, meron pa yung central tower. Meron pa rin yung mga tower sa likod. And look at the pointiness of this thing. So make it a point in your lifetime to be able to go to Spain kasi for me as an architect, Gaudi has always been my favorite architect. Yan. Gaudi is my favorite architect. So kung magkaaroon kayo ng favorite architect, piliin niyo yung masipag na. Charot. Joke lang. Anyway, so Gaudi and Van der Rohe are my favorite architects. Moving forward, organic architecture building should be functional, harmonizes with its natural environment and forms an integrated whole. Shapes are often of irregular contours and resembles form found in nature. Easily, Sagrada Familia would be an example of organic architecture. So this is mostly Gaudi's work, yung organic architecture, but you would be able to tell this. This could also relate to Art Nouveau. Diba remember, it uses organic forms. So our next architect in line, who is this guy? Frank Lloyd Wright, FLW. Kung may Twitter kayo, there's an RP student. Di ko sure kung student pa siya ngayon. Pero during my time, merong Twitter account na Frank Lloyd left. Tapos nagpo-post siya ng mga bloopers about RP school. Yung mga hugot ng mga RP student. So, Frank Lloyd Wright believed that buildings should be spread horizontally. I don't know about you, Frank, pero right now it's not applicable kasi during this time, do you hear the background noise? May maingay akong kapitbahay na muntik ko ng pukulin. My God. Anyway, sorry for the background noise. Janela, I'll mute you for a while. Napakaingay ng mga kapitbahay natin. Anyway, so Frank, Janela, mute nga kita saglit. Sorry, ikaw nga yung maingay. So, Frank Lloyd Wright believed that buildings should be spread horizontally. Understandable because at this point in time, hindi pag ganun kadami yung, Janela, ba't ka ba nag-unmute? Wait nga lang, mute nga lang muna kita. Kanina ka pa. Anyway, at this point in time, hindi pa naman kasi ganun kadami yung population, hindi pa ganun kadami yung buildings, hindi pa ganun, alam niyo, hindi pa ganun kalaki yung density sa urban space, kaya mas magagamit pa natin yung space horizontally. It's what he believed in. But right now, hindi mo na pwedeng gawin yan. At kasi, you know, architecture is site-specific, number one, and then you have to consider the context. And considering the context at this time, marami pang blank lots, marami pang mga buildable areas. So maybe that's why he believed that buildings should be spread horizontally. He is a promoter of organic architecture. He designed the Priory Home or the Priory House and the Broad Acre City. Broad Acre City is something that you will be discussing in your planning one, I think, planning one. This is the Robbie House in Chicago, Illinois. Very long overhang. Very, hindi siya ganun kataas kasi nga di ba ayaw nga niya ng mataas. So this is how he designed it for the Robbie family. This is probably his most famous building, the Falling Water in Pennsylvania. It's for a rich family. And you know, nagka-problem ito sa kanyang mga falling water. It actually had falling water inside. So yun. Akong naka-unmute. Sorry, Janela, mamute talaga kita. Ikaw pala talaga yun. So, any questions so far with Gaudi and Frank Lloyd Wright before we proceed? Questions, comments, suggestions? Violent reaction. Any questions so far? Janela, nag-unmute ka mag-isa. Anyway, this is another structure by Frank Lloyd Wright. This is the Solomon Guggenheim Museum in Manhattan. We have another Guggenheim Museum. in conclusion to there. Ang sabi ni Frank, ang tamang way daw ng pagpunta sa isang museum ay magsisimula ka from the top. Topmost floor, going to the bottom. Kaya lagay kita sa waiting room, wait lang ah. Hanggat hindi ka nakakapag-mute. Diyan muna sa waiting room, sorry. Kasi nakakailang mute na ako sa'yo, sorry Janela. Kahit sabihan si Janela, nilagay ko siya sa waiting room. So, sorry Janela. So, ang belief ni Frank Lloyd Wright is, ang proper way daw ng pag-tour sa isang museum is you go on the topmost floor, circling down, pababa. Okay. Okay, so one of his proposals for now, the bigger picture is the Broadacre City. This is actually something that you would discuss in your planning one. So he believed that the city is a process. It's not just a form. So in the Broadacre City, he wanted to provide on a community scale the expression of democratic ideas as he saw them. His city would provide for space. He would provide for everything that you would need in a city. So 1 acre of land, meron ka na lahat ng pangangailangan ng mga taong. Someone wants to say something on the chat, wait. Sino ba yung unmute mag-isa? Guys, napaka-distract. Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? So, Broadacre City is actually a community plan proposed by FLW. He wanted to provide a space for everyone in the just check who's unmuting. Yeah, it's still Janela na nag-unmute. Janela, lagay mo na kita talaga sa waiting room ha. Kasi ikaw pala talaga yung nag-unmute. Anyway, so Broadacre City anticipates the urban context na mangyayari in the future. So he proposed this idea in the book, The Disappearing City in 1932. The Broadacre City is an alternative for the high-density metropolitan city. So even before, he was actually envisioning na lalaki yung population natin in the urban sense. So in Broadacre City, each family is to be given 1 acre of land in which to build the house and grow food. The city was considered to be almost fully self-sufficient. So, yun yung idea na 1 acre per family. Yung gagawin natin sa Broadacre City for them to provide a means for all spaces na kailangan ng isang community. So moving on, you'll discuss more of this in your planning subject. So that's an intro of it. That's one way to look at it. There will be other perspectives or other views, probably by other professors would teach you something else. But that's the idea of Broad City for me. So Bauhaus architecture, Bau meaning building, house is in house. It's a school of thought, or actually a literal school in Germany founded by Walter Gropius. It's a synthesis of technology, craft, and design aesthetics for functional design. This is the Bauhaus building in the South, Germany. So Bauhaus, it's actually one of the fonts that we're using now in Microsoft Word. So Bauhaus, so itong si Walter Gropius naman, he wanted to build something that would combine architecture, design, and yung technology na present at that time. So Bauhaus is a school of design and architecture founded by Walter Gropius, and the school was founded to unite the thoughts of art, industry. So lahat yun i-apply natin sa building design, including painting, sculpture, landscaping, everything else. So the basic foundation of the Bauhaus movement is that form will always follow function. Similarly, with the previous architects that we discussed, so form follows function like Louis Sullivan. So, wait lang ha. Wait lang, sasawayin lang natin yung maingay. Anyway, sorry for the background noise. Sinabihan na natin sila na huwag silang maingay. So the principle of Bauhaus design still stands up until today. Kasi marami sa mga designers natin, they go to the Bauhaus School of Thought or the literal school, the building house, to study industrial design. Next is the international style. Someone wants to say something on the chat. John Rodney, John Amor, Aubrey, ang haba. Mamaya ko na babasahin yung mga chat nyo, guys. Hindi naman siya important. Kung hindi naman siya super important. Anyway, so international style is functional architecture devoid, meaning walang influence of regional characteristics, simple geometric forms, large untextured surface, large areas of glass, and the general use of steel and reinforced concrete construction. This for me, international style for me, is your general idea of modern architecture. When I asked a while ago, one of your classmates has answered, modern architecture is wala daw ornamentation. Actually, yes and no. No for the earlier parts, which is up until Bauhaus, or up until the recent, before Bauhaus, up until organic one. International style would be this is your general idea of what modern architecture looks like. Walang masyadong ornament, glass lang yung facade, steel construction, blah, blah, and so on. So one of the famous people during the international style, or the promoter of the international style, is Le Corbusier. That's his alias, that's his name, that's his nickname. He aliased himself as Le Corbusier. His name is Charles Edouard Jeanneret, and he believes that the house is a machine for living in. So this is what I was telling you about earlier. This is Ville Savoy in France. So this is the literal representation for me of yung mga pointers natin in architecture. He actually has that, the 5 points of architecture. The basis of modern architecture, according to Le Corbusier, is the 5 points of architecture. This proposes his ideas about how to live in an industrialized world. Remember, at this point in time, we are just entering the industrial movement. Hindi pa tayo super modern like now. Wala pang smartphone. So, but still, it's a far, far, far from the revivalist era. Marami na tayong improvements sa building construction methods and materials. So we were able to build this one. This is Ville Savoy for you. And now his 5 points are the pilotes, the open plan, free facade or curtain wall facade, the ribbon windows, and the roof garden. Pilotes, what are the pilotes in this particular structure? Can you point out the pilotes? Anyone? Can anyone tell me what the pilotes is in this structure? Ang weird ng mga kapitbahay namin, may fireworks sila sa araw ng mga patay at may bagyo. Anyway, can anyone tell me what the pilotes is? If no one can tell me, I will just call on Stephanie Dizon to answer. Stephanie? Stephanie's not here. Let's try Severix. Nag-raise ng hand.
Yung poste po ba yun? Ano ba?
Ah?
Sumasalo? Yung poste po bang sumasalo dito?
Yung
Poste po na sumasalo, yun po ba yan?
yung poste po, yung pilotes, which is correct. So, yes, Mika? Mika, you want to say something?
Ma'am, nasagot na po eh.
Di sagutin mo yung kasunod. Ano yung open plan na sinasabi ni Le Corbusier? When you look at Villa Savoy from on the inside, it's actually relatively open. There's no unnecessary walls that divides the structure into unnecessary rooms. So, it's actually really open para mas madali din yung air circulation kasi walang wall na nag-obstruct sa flow ng hangin that goes into this ribbon windows. This is your free facade, your curtain wall, and your ribbon windows. Big windows that goes all the way through. So, yung taas nito is also a roof garden dito sa curved part ng stairs. Stairs yan ah. This is actually something I enjoy doing in college kasi gumawa ako ng scaled model ng Villa Savoy. So, he wanted, number one, to elevate the building on pilotes para clear yung ground. Merong daluyan ng air, meron tayong, for the Philippine context, pag binaha ka is yung baha hindi magbe-build ng pressure dahil tumatag or umiiwas sa mga wall mo. But they go through underneath dahil nakapilotis ka lang. So lesser surface area yung kailangan tamaan ng tubig. So lesser pressure is being built. Open plan, again, discuss natin yung open plan. This is Le Corbusier's idea of how modern architects should design their buildings or modern design for him. This is actually the technical or the literal representation of his ideas. Pero remember, these ideas, they all make sense. They all make sense. Yung roof garden niya, sabi niya kasi kung ano yung surface area na kukunin ko sa baba, ibabalik ko sa taas. Para hindi ako nagbawas ng green or ng open spaces or technically ng greeneries. So, this was his idea. Mind you, I do not disagree to any of this. I don't know if you disagree. If you disagree, you let me know. So, we could have a discussion on this. Pero, it's actually more of a very practical approach to architecture. So, this is Le Corbusier for me. Moving forward, this is actually one of Le Corbusier's later building, Unité de Habitat. Mahirap siyang i-pronounce. It's not habitation, it's habitation in Marseille, France. So, this is one of the early mass housing in France. This is a residential complex. The Notre Dame du Haut, also in France. This is a church, by the way, by Le Corbusier again. So, this is technically different from the ones that we saw na mas rigid yung itsura. Kasi this is kind of a softer one, pero it's more bulky. You see how he used thick load-bearing walls for this one. Very small windows would remind you of your Romanesque structures also. And the Laville contemporary. This is actually something that you would discuss in your planning subject. But essentially, this is another mass housing program that did not come into fruition. Hindi siya nangyari, pero this is his idea of a high-rise. This is an early idea of Le Corbusier ng mga condominiums natin now. But this happened. Now it's happening in the Philippines. It's been happening, mga high-rise condo natin. Kasi I think at that time, Le Corbusier, opposite Frank Lloyd Wright, si Frank Lloyd Wright, he wanted, where is FLW? He believed that buildings should be built horizontally. Even his Broadacre City wanted it to be horizontal or relatively low. Ngayon, si Le Corbusier, naisip na niya na dadami yung tao. This is a manifestation of yung, mababa pa to, hindi pa siya super taas compared to this proposal of Le Corbusier. So, naisip na niya, na-anticipate na niya na at some point in time, dadami masyado yung density ng tao. We need to address that. And we will be running out of land kung lahat sila ay 1 acre each. So that's another school of thought for you. Another of my favorite architect, this guy, very controversial guy. Kabit daw siya ng isang owner ng Farnese house. Sorry, dami sinabi. So this is Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He believed that less is more. He is best known for developing boxy, steel and glass architecture for nearly every purpose. So lahat ng building ni Van der Rohe is glass and steel lang. Very simple, less is more. Hindi nga daw less is a bore, less is more yung kanya. So this is one of his designs, the Barcelona Pavilion in Spain. He also designed the Barcelona chairs, this one. If you have interior design friends, they actually study about furnitures, the origin of furnitures, and this is one of the furniture that they study. This is the Barcelona chair, the Barcelona, Barcelona chair lang tawag nila. It's designed by Van der Rohe. So, quick Google check for the Barcelona chair. Yeah, Barcelona chair is designed. It's a chair designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe and Lily Rake for the German pavilion at the International Exposition in 19 something, yeah. So this is also designed by Van der Rohe. This is the Farnsworth House in Illinois, kung saan masyadong na-intriga si Van der Rohe. Masyadong madaming intriga sa bahay na to. So I'd like you to search on this house and find out the chismis for yourself, because this is a recorded lecture and I don't want to bring you the chismis of the house. So you'll be the one to check for yourselves. And we can discuss some other time offline. This is one of Vandera's office building, the Seagram building in New York. If you look closely, still, glass and steel pa din. Wala masyadong design. I think this is what you are thinking when we say modern architecture. Glass and steel, plain facade, no ornaments. So your modern architecture is embodied by Vandera. My first job as an intern was in Atlas Real Estate. The lead architect or the senior head architect was Frederick Yang Chung, cousin of Dennis Yang, the owner of McDonald's Philippines. But we did not get any McDonald's back then. So he is BA architecture, not BS. So they were more concerned on the literature behind architects, buildings, designs. So he likes Vandero. And siguro, by learning from him a lot, nagustuhan ko rin si Vandero. But I actually like Gaudi more. Gaudi's mind is really just very, very playful. So Vandero now is your modern architecture. When you are thinking of a modern building, modern structure, si Vandero talaga yung una mong maiisip. The Seagram building is actually one of the top of your list kasi siya yung talagang plain looking lang, wala talagang design at all, and all glass and all steel facade. So recap of the modern architecture we brought about by the Industrial Revolution, new materials such as glass, steel. Sorry for the typo. I will edit the slides kasi nanonood ako ng news niyan and it's all about thieves and steel, mga ninakaw, mga smuggle sa Philippines. Sorry. So glass, steel, and reinforced concrete. So styles have no precedent. Again, di na siya naka-base sa Greco-Roman or sa mga revivalist era. Modernist style, expressionism, distill, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, organic architecture, Bauhaus, and international style. For next week, next group 3, prepare for postmodernism. Get in touch with me for your topic, and contemporary architecture will be for the next group. So that's it for now. Any questions, suggestions, violent reaction, or anything at all that you want to share?
Ma'am,
Yes?
di ko na po ba inabutan si Anthony Gaudi?
Hindi mo inabutan si Gaudi. Ano, sorry? Ano sabi?
Di,
Hindi ko namin
di,
inabutan.
di ko na po ba ma'am inabutan siya?
Sige, recorded naman siya. So, pwede natin siyang balikan anytime. I-upload ko din siya tonight. Kasama nung naunang last week na hindi ko na-upload. So, it's uploaded tonight. So, any questions so far? Questions, comments, suggestions, violent reaction? Did we understand the lesson today? Or did we not understand the lesson today? Or if there's anything else that you're confused on or you need enlightenment, you let me know so I can answer you ahead of your finals. Because you will be taking your finals very, very soon. So we can all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So any questions, comments, suggestions, violent reaction? None? If none, then I will be giving the link to your essay number, I think essay number 2 already for you, no? Essay number 2 for you, guys, correct? So I'll be giving you the specific topic now since most of you asked me, ano po ba yung topic? Kasi hindi pala nila naiintindihan. So I want you guys to pick your, just in 2 paragraphs, very, very short one, just a very short one. From the revivalist era, you can pick one revivalist movement and write something about it. And why do you think it should have been carried over or dapat sila pa rin yung nananatili until now? So to add to that topic, now that we've discussed the modern day architects or architecture, you can now pick your modern movements, modern isms, your modern architects, and discuss what you think is best na naiwan sa practice. Ano dapat yung naiwan, or ano dapat yung i-retain natin as architects, as future architects? Ano yung tingin nyo best i-retain or best pagkuhaan ng inspiration? Kasi it makes sense in the Philippine setting. Be very, very specific of your setting. It's in the Philippines, not anywhere else in the world. So if you have no questions, suggestions, or comments and violent reactions, then Class is dismissed, and I hope you have a restful weekend ahead of you guys. And if you have any questions, comments, and violent reactions, you have my number, you have my email, you have my messenger. Feel free to contact me anytime. And thank you for attending class today. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.